In 1976, singer-songwriter Bob Seger released his fourth studio album titled Night Moves, and the album is filled with fantastic tracks. Top to bottom, the album is absolutely stacked with tracks that just bring out that like 60s, 70s rock and roll nostalgia that, you know, I love and many other people really love dearly. But there's one specific song on that album that I think is really personally relevant to me, and just a song that has always stood out to me as, you know, the best of that album, and just honestly like the best rock and roll song ever in my opinion. And that song, like the album, is of course titled Night Moves. On May 17th of 2021, my little 15-year-old self stumbled upon Night Moves by Bob Seger somewhere on my Spotify algorithm. I can't honestly remember the day. All I have from the day on my Google Photos is this image, so I have no clue what I was actually doing on that day or how I found the song, but I did. And little did I know that that song would soon become my most listened to song of that year, and also my most listened to song of all time, actually. With 246 streams and 1.1 thousand minutes listened, it's no shock to say that the song is probably my favorite song of all time. I mean, I really struggle to call a song my favorite of all time, but if I kind of had to like venture to guess what it would be, it likely would be this song. I've consistently listened to it and found it really, really emotionally like powerful and just super relevant to me consistently throughout my life. So I think if I was to choose a song, this would be my top song. What better song for me personally to make a video on than a song that I've literally spent almost a day, almost a full day of my life listening to. Like a song that I've listened to so much. I've listened to this song for 17 hours of my life. 17 whole hours. But regardless, that gives me a pretty good authority to speak on this song and kind of talk about why it's important and dive into it on this channel. Steeped in bittersweet nostalgia, the song posits two main themes. The first theme being of the literal night moves that we practice when we're younger, you know, maybe our first loves or our first relationship, or maybe even the first people that we sleep with, just kind of figuring out those teenage blues and learning who we want to be and what sort of relationships we want for the future. And then in the second half of the song, it posits the other theme, which is how the night moves figuratively as we get older, how the night moves from the autumn into summer and moves through all the seasons of our life, shifting as we get older. And now that I am older, actually, I feel like I can appreciate this song from both sides. And today I would like to jump into the song and dissect a little bit of why it's so good, talk a little bit about the instrumentation, talk mostly about the fantastic lyrics, kind of get into the symbolism, the meaning, the history, all that sort of stuff. So stick around. I'm really excited to talk about the song, and you know, I've listened to it way too much, so it'd be good to get my thoughts out. And if you like this song, stick in, you'll probably learn something, and I need the engagement. So again, if you like the video, if you like what I'm doing, please like and subscribe. It helps the channel a lot. I'm trying to build my audience, and you know, I really appreciate that. So if you do like the video, if you do like me talking for some damn reason, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. But you know, otherwise, let's jump right into the video. This first line really sets the tone for the song. I mean, it's a song about growing up and kind of figuring out who you want to be, and kind of fleshing out your personality and your character and your experiences a bit more. And you know, the whole symbolism of like, and the whole metaphor is like, you know, he's a bit too tall with a frame that's not really filled out, he's a bit skinny. That's, you know, visually, even just in your head, it kind of creates this image of a stupid teenager who doesn't really know what he's doing yet. You know, I mean, even just like the, you know, being a bit too tall can be a bit like, too big for your britches, you're a bit in under your head, in over your head. Yeah, you're a bit in over your head, you know, and perhaps he was a little bit in over his head, you know, with the girl that he mentions later in the song. And I think that's kind of a really like, just amazing first metaphor to start the song with, you know, just not having, you know, not having that experience and that personality that it takes to maintain a relationship, and just being inexperienced in that way. And then, you know, tying that back to like the literal example of like physically being too tall and being like skinny and everything, like that really works. And again, relevant to me, I was really tall in high school, and I still am tall now, you know, I'm 6'3", and it's like, I don't know, I just, that line always kind of hit me. I mean, it's a fantastic opening line and kind of really sets the tone for the song. Also, it is like historically accurate, you know, Bob Seger was on the track team, he probably had quite a lean build. Which I thought was interesting when I was doing research for the thing. I found out that he was actually on the track team, so I was like, oh, that actually is true. sure, he probably was quite skinny when he was a teenager. This second line is in reference to fashion that was really popular when Bob Seger was probably younger. The song is set in 1963, I believe, or 62. No, yes, 1962. And, you know, at that time, greaser fashion was a huge thing and everything. And tight pants and points was the whole tight denim jeans, groovy and everything, and then the points being the pointed shoes that, you know, was very popular in greaser fashion and everything, and probably what Bob Seger would have worn when he was younger. This line is actually the first description we get of the girl that he brings up frequently in the song, and kind of what the story is all about. According to Bob Seger, she was this dark-haired Italian girl, and they went out when he was 19 and she was a year older than him. And to quote Bob Seger, she was a real hot number, which I think is really funny and kind of cute. Like I love slang like that, like older slang, like real hot number. Oh, she's a real good number, eh? But like, yeah, I mean, they went out and it only lasted a year. And, you know, that's a lot of teenage experiences. A lot of teenage experiences, like kind of myself included. A lot of the time as a teenager, you have more feelings for the person than you do ability to actually navigate relationships, which is a really awkward and kind of shitty thing sometimes. So I think this song really taps into that, and this is kind of the first hint towards the relationship that we see in the song. If you haven't guessed, this line is in reference to the previous line talking about his pointed shoes, but I believe this time he's referring to the ladies. I don't know if I can say it on YouTube. Boobies. So he's talking about boobs. Yeah, he's referring to, you know, his lover's boobs and everything. And you know, I think I think it's actually very telling, kind of the age he was at, and I think like that being one of the first things he mentions about her, is she's being like, oh, damn, you know, like it's very telling of like the age he was at, and kind of, I don't want to say he's like immature at the time because I don't know, but like it kind of shows that mental immaturity of a teenager, that one of the things that you like the most about someone is how they look physically, or, you know, their assets, if you will. And I think it really sets the tone for like their relationship being somewhat superficial. I don't want to say it's fully superficial, but, you know, somewhat superficial, as a, you know, he says it later in the song that they were kind of like not using each other in a manipulative way, but, you know, they were getting something out of each other, you know. So I think that's a really good, I mean, as simple as it is, like lyrically, and like as much as it's really funny, it does work really well for the song. And actually later, in the next line below, he doubles down on this and says, way up firm and high, which, you know, damn Bob Seger, you're just fucking styling on us now, you're just showing off. I don't know. I mean, I think, I like I say, I think it fits the song contextually, and I think it's a really cute way to kind of show that they were kind of young. You know, they were just enjoying each other and everything, and I think that's just like a very teenage thing to do, to kind of like, the biggest thing in your head about this person is the fact that they're hot, you know. This one is actually in reference to the house that Bob Seger moved to when he was 5. Apparently it's quite densely like wooded and surrounded by forest and everything, and likely would have been where they, you know, slunk away to get it on, and then the woods and all that sort of stuff. And then in the next line, referring to a 60 Chevy, which I would venture to guess is probably a bit of a main character, bit of a pretty important piece in this whole puzzle, and probably spent a lot of time in that Chevy. I think in the music video they actually did get a 60 Chevy, and like they do the whole like all foggy windows, you know, Titanic hand scene thing, which is, you know, that's cute, that's classic teenage imagery, you know. I mean, every fucking like young adult TV show does that at this point, and it works really well for the song. Oh, this line, man, working on mysteries without any clues. Whew. What a line. I think that just, it so encapsulates such a teenage experience, especially in a relationship. Is like, I don't know what the fuck's going on, man. Like, you, as a teenager, you really feel like a lot of the time you are working on mysteries without any clues. And I think that's such a good analogy for how he would have felt at the time, and how so many people feel in these sort of relationships or situations, or even just being a teenager in general, like without being in a relationship. That is a really, really apt way to describe it. These lines really double down and emphasize like the whole 60s, 70s, like rock and roll, summer love, you know, sweet youth sort of thing the song's going for. But it also kind of sets up this idea of summertime. And again, like I said earlier, the song does present two themes, and one of them is kind of about aging, and it kind of starts to posit the idea that our teenage youth is seen as summertime. And I mean, also literally, he was probably doing all this stuff in the summertime, but it kind of sets up that idea that will be capitalized on later in the song. I think this line kind of shows the carelessness of the relationship, but not in a bad way. I think it just kind of shows that they both knew that it wasn't going anywhere. They both knew that this relationship probably wasn't mounting to anything super lifelong or super important, but I think the acceptance in that is where the song kind of hits its stride. I think the importance of accepting that something doesn't have to last forever is what makes it beautiful. And I think that's a really beautiful line, showing that, they weren't in love. They were far from it. And I think that's okay, especially in the 60s. I think like in the 60s, there probably would have been a lot of pressure that like if you were together with someone, you make it work. And people got married when they were like 18, I'm 19, fuck, I'm not getting married, Far off that. I think the acceptance of that and accepting that this is all it has to be is really important and kind of liberating and beautiful. And it's worth having the memories anyway, even if it doesn't go forever, even if something that you have with someone doesn't last forever, all the time it's worth just having the memories anyway. And I think that's really beautiful. Lines like living by the sword are a reflection of the risky sort of lifestyle they were living, stealing away to hook up in like cars and forests and everything. It's kind of a risky lifestyle. But I think also it kind of paints this picture of this Bonnie and Clyde situation. Like being, a lot as a teenager you feel isolated, and having someone that you can kind of confide in a little bit and you're so personally connected to, and having someone that you're so intimate with can feel really like it's us against the world.
Against the world!
I'm so brain rot. I just thought of Marvel Rivals. It kind of evokes this like Bonnie and Clyde. It's just us together. I don't really have anyone else to confide in the same as you sort of feeling. And I think that's very nostalgic. And as you get older, you kind of realize that you have friends and you can talk to people. But like, especially like I think I don't want to sound like a men's health channel, but like as a younger guy, I felt like there wasn't many people that I could talk to. I grew up without a father. There were people that I could talk to in my life, yeah, but there wasn't anyone that I wanted to hear advice from other than my friends. And as in my teenage years, your relationships with your friends is kind of weird. Like, you don't really know how close you are with friends. And then as you get older, you realize like, oh, these are my guys. This is who I'm tight with, and I can trust these people with my life and everything. But when you're younger, you don't know that, and you don't have that you don't know the value of those sort of deep relationships yet. So, you oftentimes do end up kind of stranded with this one other person in your life that you can talk to, and you kind of feed off each other and live off each other's advice and confidement and everything. And I think that's really beautiful. The whole like risky Bonnie and Clyde lifestyle sort of thing. That's another thing that they set up there. And I think that's really masterfully written. The way that he wrote that to be like, we were living this risky lifestyle. He wasn't saying that like specifically what the risk was, because then it can apply to anyone. It can apply to anyone in their youth, dating someone. And I think that adds a lot to the song personally. And, I think it kind of makes the song more adaptable to different people while still maintaining the core themes and story that it's trying to tell here. These lines kind of sum up the main themes of the song. That like weird teenage codependency thing that I was just describing, and the bittersweet memories that I think we all have. And then at the end of this line, the piano and drums start like picking up and everything, and it just kind of mounts to this feeling of like, this song kind of brings so much back and kind of pulls it out of you. And lines like these really, as simple as they are, they evoke really deep feelings within me, and I'm sure a lot of other people. And they're super simple, like lyrically and all that, but I think they work so well. And Bob Seger's just a really masterful writer. And the further we get into the song, the lyrics are just going to keep getting better. If I'm being entirely honest. Like the metaphors here get so good. The bridge here brings in the second part of the metaphor of the song. We start shifting from using the night moves as a literal sense of practicing your night moves with your partner, to moving into how the night moves from adulthood and onwards and all that. And Bob Seger uses the analogy here of lightning and then thunder, and I think it's probably the lightning of being in a relationship and like the electricity of that connection followed by the, you know, maybe the breakup and then the movement into adulthood, or just like the reflection of that being the longer drawn out thunder, you know. And I think lightning and thunder is a really good analogy as well, because it implies inevitability. There's an inevitability to this relationship, you know. There's this lightning and electricity between us, but there has to be thunder to balance that out. There's an inevitable, you know, there's an inevitable end to this. And I think that's kind of what brings the emotion and brings the levity out of those lines, that it's just so clever. There's so many different analogies that he could use, but lightning and thunder work so well. And then, you know, following the past setup of that metaphor from the past line, and then moving into the present now in 1976, so the present of when the song was written, you know, it kind of pictures, it brings out this visual image of, you know, Bob Seger waking up to the lightning and sitting on the edge of his bed and, you know, maybe lighting up a cigarette and just staring off into his room and, you know, thinking about these memories that have been evoked back by the thunder and by the, maybe even the weather and the feelings. And that's something that's so important, I think. I think we've all been there, we've all had that. We're just, the smell in the air or the weather or just something brings us back to our youth, or we get woken up in the middle of the night and we end up sitting on the edge of our bed and thinking about something from when we were younger. And I think it's just such, you know, it just hits the nail on the spot. It's just exactly what that vibe was, you know. And actually in the song, he references that he starts thinking about a song from 1962 when the first half of the song was set. And that song is actually confirmed later on by Bob Seger to be My Baby by the Ronettes, which I think is really cute because I like that song a lot as well. I think thinking of a song from when you were younger is kind of the biggest like meta conspiracy of levels to the song. Because if you think about it, I would wake up in the middle of the night, start thinking about my partner from when I was younger, and chuck on Night Moves by Bob Seger. Like levels, layers, people. And I love that. I love that. It's almost like some sort of like manifestation he was doing, that people would feel this way about his song. And it's so cool. It's so cool that he references that in a way that is relevant to the person that's listening to the song. Pretty cool. Throughout the start of the song, Night Moves is used as a noun, representing the working out of teenage blues with your, you know, summertime fling, or, you know, the lover from your youth or whatever. And then as you get older and as the song progresses, it is used to describe the movement from the young summers of your life to the darker autumn of your life. You know, your 20s and 30s, where stuff starts getting a bit more real. Things have more stakes to them and life is a bit more serious. You know, it's a darker, more somber season of your life. And I think, you know, this was very directly referenced by the fact that he describes, towards the end of the song here, he describes the end of summer with autumn closing in, you know. I think that works really, really well for the song Fuck. You know, and then this metaphor is doubled down on by the use of the summertime to autumn thing that he's been talking about throughout the song, describing the youth of our life as, you know, the fun summer, you know, hooking up with people, having fun at summertime and all that sort of stuff. And then later on in the song, it shifts to autumn. You know, autumn's closing in. You know, the darker stages of our lives, our 20s and 30s, where things are a bit more serious. You know, we've got taxes and mortgages and you know, like we've got important stuff going on. And I think that's just a really beautiful piece of solace that, you know, even as we get older, we can still look back on these memories and kind of relive the summertime of our life and everything. And I think that's really comforting to me. I think the song just has this real comforting vibe. And as much as I try so hard to explain it in this video and, you know, I'm breaking down everything, it's not going to do it enough justice. Like, it really is a piece of music, a piece of art that you have to feel while listening to. And as corny as that sounds, it's very true that you just have to sit there and just feel the song, man. Let it wash over you. And as we approach the end of the song, it kind of explodes into this like orchestral, you know, little outro, repeating the words, Night Moves over and over again, and commenting on how funny it is that we remember this stuff so well. Ain't it funny how you remember? And just Bob Seger saying how well he remembers this stuff just hits me in the feels, you know, because usually we remember the first time we did things really, really well. You know, we remember firsts in our life a lot. typically speaking. And I think it's really beautiful how the song shows that even though these memories are gone, even though these times are gone, they'll stick in our head forever. And we can always remember them and look back on them and feel good and kind of relive that summertime of our life every now and then when we need to kind of think about how far we've come. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the song, is that when I was younger, when I was 15, you know, when I was crushing on this one girl in high school, I used to listen to the song a lot, you know. She had like dark hair and brown eyes and everything, and oh my god, it's so cringe if she sees this video. But you know, I was crushing on her heavy and everything, and I was listening to the song a lot. I think I even showed it to her at some point. But you know, I was listening to the song so much at the time, and now that I'm older, this song represents so many things, and it represents my shift and my growth and the different relationships I've had over the time. And it just, I think it's beautiful how that's displayed in the song, and I think it's a really beautiful song. And I'm super happy I got a chance to speak about it. So anyway, if you liked this video, please like and subscribe. It's really important, and it does a lot for me and the algorithm. Please do it. Comment even if you want to. Comment what you think. Comment how you feel, actually, because I put a lot of work into this video, and if you like the song, I'd love to hear your thoughts about it, because it's a really beautiful song, and I just love it to bits. It's a really good song, and it's so, oh, it hits me in the feels every single time. So, you know, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you didn't like this video, fuck you. I'm joking. If you didn't like this video, sorry that you watched all the way to the end here. Sorry. Either way, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe, guys. Peace and love. Bye-bye.